I always thought my marriage to Emily was solid. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but we were best friends. We shared everything, dreams, fears, and silly inside jokes. I was convinced that our love was built on trust and mutual respect. But that all began to unravel when I planned a surprise birthday trip for her last year. Little did I know, it would be the start of my heartbreak. Emily had been acting strangely for a few months leading up to her birthday. She was more secretive about her phone, often texting late into the night, which I brushed off as her being busy with work. She even started going out with friends more frequently, claiming it was self-care. I should have seen the signs, but I was too wrapped up in my own life, too trusting of her intentions. When her birthday week rolled around, I had everything planned. I booked a cozy cabin in the mountains, stocked it with her favorite wine, and planned a romantic dinner. I was so excited to celebrate, thinking it would be a perfect getaway for us. I shared the surprise with her a few days before, and her reaction was a mix of excitement and, was it apprehension? I shrugged it off. Maybe it was the pressure of a surprise trip, or maybe she was just overwhelmed with work. I wanted to believe the best in her. The day arrived and we set off for the cabin. The drive was filled with laughter and music, but I noticed Emily kept checking her phone. Each time she did, a knot twisted in my stomach, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Once we reached the cabin, I tried to create a romantic atmosphere. I lit candles, poured the wine, and we settled in for a lovely evening. But as the night went on, Emily's phone buzzed again and again, pulling her attention away from me. The frustration bubbled beneath the surface. By the end of the night, I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to enjoy my wife's company, but she seemed miles away. "You know, it's my birthday too," I said, trying to keep my tone light, but the hurt slipped through. "Could you put that away for just a bit?" She snapped back with a defensive edge. "I'm just checking on work, okay? You think I want to be glued to my phone?" Her words stung. We went to bed that night without the intimacy I had hoped for. I lay awake, consumed by thoughts of her behavior. The next day, I decided to confront her. I needed to know what was going on, to understand what was eating away at our happiness. Emily's mood didn't improve, and I found myself growing more anxious. On our second night, while she was in the bathroom, I made a split-second decision to check her phone, thinking maybe I could find a clue, just something to ease the gnawing doubt. I didn't expect to find what I did. There it was, an endless stream of texts between her and someone named Jake. The messages were flirty and explicit, filled with plans to meet up while I was away. My heart dropped as I read. The world around me blurred, and I felt bile rise in my throat. The very air felt heavy with betrayal. She had used my birthday trip to sneak away with him while I was under the impression we were celebrating together. I couldn't breathe. I was flooded with disbelief, anger, and betrayal. This was not just a fling, it was a full-blown affair. With shaky hands, I put the phone back down as she emerged from the bathroom. The shock was too raw, too fresh. I knew I had to confront her, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed time to process this new reality. My mind raced through a million thoughts as I tried to keep my composure. How could she do this to me? Did she think I wouldn't find out? My heart felt like it was breaking, and I had no idea how to even start the conversation that needed to happen. As we lay in bed that night, I stared at the ceiling, the weight of betrayal sitting like a stone in my chest. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I loved, had shattered my trust. I had to come up with a plan, a way to handle this. But more than anything, I needed to know if she had any remorse for what she was doing. I decided to wait until the morning, until I could muster the words to confront her. It was time to face the truth, no matter how painful it would be. Morning came too quickly, the sunlight flooding the cabin with a harsh brightness that felt like a spotlight on my shame and anger. I lay there for a long time, listening to Emily rustle around the kitchen as she made coffee. I knew I had to confront her, but the thought of what might happen made my stomach churn. What if she denied it? What if she turned it back on me, making me feel like the crazy one? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation. I'd never thought I would be in this position, questioning my wife about infidelity, but here I was. I pulled myself out of bed, washed my face, and forced a smile as I joined her in the kitchen. Good morning, she said, looking up at me with a bright smile that felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Did you sleep well? Not really, I replied, my tone clipped. Can we talk? Her smile faded and she nodded hesitantly. We sat at the small table, and I felt the tension in the air thickening like fog. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, glancing at the steaming cup of coffee in front of me as if it held the answer. Emily, I found something last night, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Your phone. Her eyes widened, and in that moment I could see the realization dawning on her. What do you mean? She asked, feigning innocence. I saw the messages with Jake, I said, not holding back. I know about the affair. Her face flushed and she opened her mouth, but I cut her off. Don't try to deny it. I read everything. You were planning to meet him while we were here. The silence that followed felt deafening. Emily shifted uncomfortably in her seat, refusing to meet my gaze. I wanted to scream, to shake her until she understood the depth of her betrayal, but instead I remained calm, even though my insides were roiling. Okay, fine, she said finally, her voice hollow. I wasn't going to tell you, but not going to tell me. I interrupted, incredulous. So you thought you could just hide it forever? You used my birthday trip to sneak away with him, Emily. She looked up at me, her eyes flashing with anger. It's not like that. I was feeling lost and Jake was he was there for me. I thought it was just a fling, just a bit of fun. I didn't want to hurt you. A fling, my voice raised slightly, the hurt spilling out. You didn't think it would hurt me to betray my trust, to lie to me. You've been sneaking around behind my back. I wasn't sneaking around. She snapped, the defensiveness bubbling to the surface. You're always so busy with work. I didn't think you'd care. I thought you'd be too wrapped up in your own life to notice. That hurt more than anything she could say. I couldn't believe she was trying to shift the blame onto me. The truth was, I had been busy, but I had never once thought it would lead to her straying. So this is my fault now? I asked, my voice dripping with disbelief. You throw away our entire relationship because I have a demanding job. Her anger seemed to evaporate, replaced by a flicker of guilt as she saw the pain in my eyes. I didn't mean it like that. I just felt so alone, and Jake made me feel wanted again. I didn't know it would turn into whatever this is. Whatever this is, I echoed, disbelief clouding my thoughts. You're right, Emily. This is not just a fling. This is betrayal at its worst. The silence that followed was thick with tension. I could see the wavering guilt on her face, the reality of her actions hitting her as hard as it hit me. I wanted to hurl the coffee cup across the room to let out all the anger that had been building up, but I had to keep it together, at least for now. Do you love him? I asked, my heart racing at the question. I needed to know. No, she whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. I don't love him. It was a mistake. A mistake, I said incredulously. You don't just fall into bed with someone and call it a mistake, Emily. This has been going on for months. I know, she said, her voice cracking. And I'm sorry, I really am. I thought I could just end it and we could fix things. I didn't want it to come to this. I sat back, stunned. The emotional roller coaster of the last few days had left me breathless. I was angry, hurt, and utterly confused. Did I want to fix this? Could we ever go back to the way things were? I had to think about my next move. I found myself at a crossroads. I could choose to forgive her, as hard as that would be, or I could walk away. The idea of walking away felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders, but the love I still had for her was a heavy anchor pulling me back. As I stared at her, I realized I needed time to think, to process everything. I stood up, the chair scraping against the floor. I need some space, I said, my voice firm. I turned my back on her and walked out onto the porch, needing the air to clear my mind and the sunlight to warm my skin. I had no idea how I would handle this betrayal, but one thing was certain. I couldn't stay in the cabin with her any longer. Not like this. I needed to figure out my next steps. Standing on the porch, I took a deep breath, trying to ground myself in the reality of the moment. The fresh mountain air filled my lungs, but it did little to clear the turmoil swirling in my mind. I felt like I was watching my life unravel in slow motion. The cabin, once a sanctuary for us, had transformed into a prison filled with betrayal. I could hear Emily moving around inside, the clinking of dishes and the rustle of her clothes a stark reminder of the woman I thought I knew. For the next hour, I paced the deck, my thoughts racing between anger, disbelief, and a deep sense of loss. I thought about all the moments we'd shared, the laughter, the plans for our future, the little things that had made our marriage feel so secure. How could she just throw it all away for some fleeting thrill? The betrayal stung like a physical wound, and I felt lost in a sea of confusion. Eventually, Emily stepped outside, the look on her face a mixture of concern and guilt. "Can we talk?" she asked softly, her voice. Trembling, I turned to face her, my heart a battleground of conflicting emotions. "What more is there to say?" I replied, my tone sharp. "You've made your choice, you made it clear where your loyalties lie." Her eyes widened, a flash of desperation crossing her face. "Please just hear me out. I know I messed up, but I love you. This was a mistake. I never meant to hurt you." "Love?" I scoffed, incredulity spilling out of me. "You don't hurt someone you love. You don't deceive them, lie to them, and then blame your actions on feeling lost. That's not love, Emily, that's selfishness." She stepped closer, her eyes pleading. "I know I've hurt you and I can't take it back, but I want to make it right. I want to fight for us." I shook my head, swallowing the lump that had formed in my throat. "How can I trust you again? This isn't just a small issue we can talk through. You've shattered my trust. I don't even recognize you anymore." Her face fell and I could see the tears brimming in her eyes. "I know I've lost your trust and I'm so sorry, but I swear I'll do anything to earn it back. Just give me a chance." The desperation in her voice tugged at my heartstrings, but I had to be strong. I felt like I was standing at a precipice, weighing the decision that would determine the course of my life. Did I want to invest any more time in a broken relationship? Or was there still something worth salvaging in our marriage? "Emily, I need time," I said finally, my voice steadier than I felt. "I can't just pretend this didn't happen. I don't even know if I want to be here anymore." Her face fell and a deep silence filled the space between us. I could see the weight of my words crashing down on her, and part of me felt guilty for hurting her. But I had to think about myself for once. I had to prioritize my own healing. "I think it's best if I go home," I continued, my resolve strengthening. "I need to figure things out, and I can't do that with you constantly asking me to fix this." "Please, don't do this," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I swear I'll do better. We can go to therapy, we can talk through this. I don't want to lose you." I felt a pang in my chest at her words, but I had to be firm. "You already lost me the moment you chose to betray my trust. I can't live like this, constantly questioning everything. This isn't just about you anymore, it's about me too." With that, I turned and walked back into the cabin to gather my things. The process felt surreal, as if I was watching someone else pack up a life that had once been filled with warmth and love. I felt hollow, moving through the motions while my mind raced with questions. Emily followed me inside, her face a mask of anguish. "You don't have to do this," she said, her voice a mixture of anger and sadness. "You're just going to throw everything away because of a mistake." "It's not just a mistake," I shot back, my temper flaring again. "It's about the lies and the secret life you've been leading. If you can betray me like this once, how do I know you won't do it again?" She insisted, her eyes pleading for me to believe her. "I swear this was a wake-up call. I don't want anyone but you." I paused, feeling my heart ache in response to her desperation, but I pushed the feeling aside. If I stayed too long, I knew I might cave in. "I need to go," I said firmly, turning my back to her to start packing my clothes and essentials. As I stuffed items into my bag, I could feel Emily's gaze burning into me, a mixture of regret and despair. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of my belongings being tossed into the bag. I felt like I was packing up not just my clothes, but the remnants of my shattered dreams. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I finished. I slung the bag over my shoulder, taking one last look around the cabin. Memories flooded back, our laughter, the warmth, the love. And now it felt cold and empty. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice steady despite the pain inside. "Please don't go," Emily said, her voice breaking as she reached out for me. "You can't just walk away from our life together." But I had to. I couldn't stay and be reminded of the betrayal at every turn. I turned and walked out of the cabin, the weight of my decision settling in. As I drove away, the tears streamed down my face, a mix of sadness, anger, and confusion. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew one thing. I needed to reclaim my life. And I was determined not to let this betrayal define me. I had to find my footing, and I would do whatever it took to heal. The drive back home was a blur, my mind racing with thoughts as I navigated the winding mountain roads. I felt like I was leaving behind not just a cabin, but the life I had built with Emily. I was overwhelmed by a storm of emotions: anger, sadness, disbelief. The ache in my chest felt like a physical weight I couldn't shake off. Each mile I drove felt like a mile away from the trust we once had, and I couldn't help but wonder if it was even possible to ever regain it. Once I arrived home, the silence enveloped me. It felt strange being alone in a place that had once felt so full of love and laughter. Now it felt hollow, like a shell of what it used to be. I dropped my bag on the floor and sank onto the couch, staring blankly at the wall. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do something to release the torrent of emotions pent up inside me, but I felt paralyzed. I pulled out my phone and stared at it, debating whether to reach out to someone. I had a couple of close friends who I could confide in, but the thought of explaining everything felt exhausting. I didn't want to seem weak, I didn't want pity, but I also knew I couldn't navigate this alone. After several minutes of internal debate, I texted my best friend Tyler. We had known each other since college, and he had always been my rock during tough times. I sent a simple message: "Hey, can we talk? I really need to vent." He replied almost immediately, suggesting we meet at a local bar. I hesitated for a moment, uncertain if I was ready for company, but part of me of the distraction. I needed to get out of the house to be around someone who knew me well enough to understand what I was going through. When I arrived at the bar, Tyler was already there, nursing a drink. He looked up as I approached, his face lighting up with concern as he saw my expression. "Hey man, what's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost." I sat down heavily, running my hands through my hair, trying to gather my thoughts. "It's Emily," I said finally, my voice shaky. "She cheated on me." Tyler's expression shifted instantly to one of empathy. "Damn, I'm sorry, man. What happened?" As I recounted the events, the trip, the discovery, the confrontation, I felt the dam of emotions break. Talking about it helped in a way. Tyler listened without interruption, his expression a mixture of disbelief and concern. I could see the anger rising in him as I explained how Emily had manipulated the situation and tried to shift the blame onto me. "That's some bullshit," he said, shaking his head. "You don't deserve that, man. You've always been there for her. This is on her, not you." I took a deep breath, grateful for his support. I just don't know what to do next. Part of me wants to fight for us, but another part of me thinks I should just cut my losses and walk away. Tyler leaned back in his chair, considering my words. "What do you want?" he asked, his tone serious. "Forget what anyone else thinks. What do you want?" I paused, feeling the weight of the question settle on my shoulders. Did I really want to put myself through the emotional wringer of trying to rebuild trust, or was it better to take the pain and move on? "I guess I want to feel whole again," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I want to know love and trust again without fear of betrayal." "That's fair," Tyler said, nodding. "And you deserve that, but you have to be ready to walk away if it comes to that. Don't let her manipulation pull you back in. You need to take care of yourself first." His words resonated with me. I had always put Emily's needs above my own, and now I was left picking up the pieces of my shattered heart. I needed to prioritize my own healing, my own happiness. We spent the next few hours talking, laughing, and reminiscing about better times. It was a much-needed distraction, and for the first time since the confrontation, I felt a flicker of hope. I knew the road ahead would be difficult, but I also knew I wasn't alone in this. I had friends who cared, and I could lean on them as I navigated the painful aftermath of my marriage. As the night wore on, I began to feel a sense of resolve building within me. I wasn't going to let Emily's actions define who I was or what I wanted from life. I would take the time to heal, to reflect on what I wanted moving forward. If Emily truly wanted to fight for our marriage, she would have to show me she was willing to change, to earn back the trust she had shattered. With each passing moment, a clearer vision of my future started to form. I realized I wanted to focus on myself for a while, learn to love myself again, find joy in the little things, and maybe even explore new interests. As I left the bar that night, I felt lighter than I had in days. It was a small step, but it was a step nonetheless. I wouldn't allow myself to be a victim of betrayal. Instead, I would be a survivor and eventually a thriver. I would reclaim my life, and I would come out stronger on the other side. The uncertainty of what lay ahead was still daunting, but I was ready to face it head on. I was determined to not only heal but to grow from this experience, no matter how painful it might be. And that was the first step toward my new beginning. The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions and adjustments. After leaving the cabin, I took some time to focus on myself and my mental well-being. I spent the first few days in a fog, grappling with the reality of my situation. I found myself feeling a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion, which was exhausting. I leaned on Tyler and a couple of other friends, who were incredibly supportive, providing a shoulder to cry on and a listening ear whenever I needed it. I knew I had to make a decision about Emily. Part of me still loved her, and I wanted to believe that our marriage could be salvaged. But the other part of me screamed that I deserved better than someone who betrayed my trust so casually. I found myself writing down my thoughts in a journal, trying to make sense of everything. It became a therapeutic outlet, allowing me to pour out my feelings and analyze what I needed moving forward. Then, about 2 weeks after the confrontation, Emily reached out to me. Initially, I ignored her calls and texts, still too raw to deal with her. But one evening, I received a text that caught my attention. It was simple yet heartfelt. "I miss you. I'm sorry for what I've done. Can we talk?" Part of me was tempted to respond, to let her know how I felt, but I didn't want to reopen wounds that were still healing. Tyler encouraged me to at least hear her out. "You deserve to know where she stands, man. And you need to know if she's genuinely willing to make amends," he said. After a few days of contemplation, I finally agreed to meet her. I suggested a public place, a coffee shop that we used to frequent. I wanted to keep it casual but secure. There would be no potential for emotional manipulation in an open space. When I walked into the coffee shop, I spotted Emily sitting at a corner table, nervously fidgeting with her hands. She looked different, more vulnerable than I'd seen her in a long time. It struck me how the weight of her actions had clearly taken a toll. As I approached, she looked up, and our eyes locked for a moment that felt charged with unspoken words. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Hey," she replied, her voice soft. "Thanks for meeting me." I nodded, taking a seat across from her. The moment felt heavy with tension, and I felt my heart race as I prepared myself for whatever she had to say. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, her eyes searching mine for understanding. "About us. About what I did. I really messed up, and I can't tell you how sorry I am." "Sorry doesn't change what happened," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "You shattered my trust, Emily. I can't just forget that." "I know," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't expect you to. I just want you to know that I've realized how wrong I was and how much I truly love you. The affair was about me trying to fill a void in my life. I thought I could escape from our problems without facing them. An escape that involved lying to me for months," I pointed out, unable to hold back the hurt. "You didn't just make a mistake. You made a series of choices that led to this." "I know, and I can't take back those choices," she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "But I want to own my mistakes. I've started seeing a therapist to work through my issues and understand why I did what I did. I want to become a better person, better for myself and for you." The sincerity in her voice caught me off guard. Part of me wanted to believe her, but the other part was still screaming for me to be careful. "You expect me to just accept that because you're going to therapy?" I asked, my tone laced with skepticism. "No," she replied quickly. "I don't expect you to accept anything right now. I just want you to know that I am committed to making things right, whether that means working on our marriage or understanding if you need to move on. I love you, and I don't want to lose you." Hearing her say those words stirred something inside me, a flicker of hope alongside a wall of doubt. I had shared a life with this woman, and there was still a part of me that wanted to believe in the love we had built together. But could I really trust her again? "Emily, I need time," I said finally, my voice softer. Time to think about everything. I'm not saying I want to end things, but I need to understand if there's a way forward for us. Trust doesn't just come back overnight. I understand, she said, relief washing over her face. Take all the time you need. I'm here and I want to support you in whatever path you choose. As we sat in that coffee shop, the conversation flowed more easily than I expected. We began discussing the good memories, the times we laughed, and the plans we had for the future. It was bittersweet knowing that those moments were now tainted by betrayal, but it also reminded me of what we had shared. Once we finished our drinks, we stood outside the shop. I could see the nervousness in her posture, the way she shifted from foot to foot as she searched for the right words. I'll always be here for you, she said softly. I really want to make this work if you'll let me. I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. I'll think about it, I told her, but I can't promise anything right now. She reached out, placing a tentative hand on my arm. Thank you for hearing me out. I love you and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. With that, I turned and walked to my car, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. I knew I had a long road ahead, a path filled with uncertainty and the need to reevaluate my feelings. But for the first time since the confrontation, I felt a glimmer of hope. It was far from a resolution, but it was a step in the right direction. As I drove away, I realized I had a lot to consider. I needed to listen to my heart, weigh my options, and take the time to heal. No matter what happened, I was determined to find my way back to myself. I wouldn't let this betrayal destroy me. Instead, I would emerge stronger, whether I stayed in the marriage or chose to walk away for good. The journey ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to take it one day at a time. The following weeks were a crucible of reflection and introspection. After my coffee shop meeting with Emily, I found myself oscillating between hope and despair. I wanted to believe that she could change, that we could rebuild our marriage, but the hurt ran deep. Each day was a new challenge, and I had to navigate my feelings carefully. I decided to focus on my own healing first, setting boundaries with Emily while still allowing her to demonstrate her commitment to change. We spoke infrequently, but when we did, she shared her progress from therapy and seemed genuinely invested in understanding herself. Better, I appreciated her efforts, but I needed more than just words. I needed actions. I began to recognize the importance of evaluating my own needs without feeling guilty about it. During this period, I also began exploring new hobbies and reconnecting with friends. Tyler was a constant support, encouraging me to step out of my comfort zone. I started going to the gym more regularly, which helped clear my mind and boost my confidence. I picked up painting again, a passion I had let slide in the chaos of life. Each brushstroke felt liberating, allowing me to express emotions I struggled to verbalize. As time went on, I found clarity, both about my feelings for Emily and the kind of relationship I wanted. I realized that forgiveness could take many forms. It didn't mean forgetting what happened or condoning her actions. Rather, it was about releasing the hold that hurt had on me. I had to reclaim my narrative, and that was empowering. After a month of distance, I felt ready to meet Emily again. I suggested another coffee date, this time with the intention of discussing the future more seriously. As I walked into the cafe, I was struck by how much calmer I felt compared to our last meeting. I had taken the time to heal, to think clearly about what I wanted. Emily was already there, nervously tapping her fingers on the table. She looked up as I approached, and I could see the flicker of hope in her eyes. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice soft. "Of course," I replied, taking a seat. "I wanted to talk about everything." She nodded, a look of understanding passing between us. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, too. I know I hurt you deeply and I can't take that back, but I want to show you that I can be better, that I can be the partner you deserve." "Emily," I began, choosing my words carefully, "I appreciate the effort you've put in. I can see that you're trying to understand your behavior, but trust is not something that can be repaired overnight. It takes time, and I'm still processing my feelings." "I understand," she said earnestly. "I don't want to rush you. I just need you to know that I'm committed to making this work if you're willing to give me a chance." I took a deep breath, weighing my options. "I think I want to try, but on a new foundation. We need to be clear about our expectations, and we both need to commit to open communication. I need to know I can trust you again." She nodded vigorously. "I'm all in. I want to go to couples therapy together to work through this with a professional. I know it will be difficult, but I'm willing to fight for us." The sincerity in her eyes touched something deep within me. "I'm willing to try therapy too," I said slowly. "But I need to take this slow. I want to see real change, not just words." "Absolutely," she replied, a look of relief washing over her face. "Thank you for giving me that chance." We spent the next hour discussing our feelings, our hopes, and the expectations we had moving forward. It felt different from before. It was raw and honest, and I could see the determination in her eyes. I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a while: connection. But I knew that it would take time to fully rebuild what we had lost. As we parted, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. I wasn't ready to declare that everything was okay, but I was willing to see where this path could lead us. I recognized that healing was a journey, not a destination, and it would take effort from both of us. In the weeks that followed, we began attending therapy sessions together. They were tough at times, peeling back layers of hurt, anger, and misunderstanding. But with each session, I could feel the barriers between us beginning to crumble. Emily was committed to doing the work, and I was committed to being open and honest about my feelings. Slowly, I allowed myself to trust her again. It wasn't easy. The scars of betrayal would linger for a long time, but I could see the woman I fell in love with starting to emerge again. The journey of rebuilding our relationship felt like a fragile dance, one filled with missteps but also moments of genuine connection. One evening, as we sat together on the couch watching a movie, I looked over at her and felt a warmth that had been missing for months. "I'm glad we're doing this," I said softly. "Me too," she replied, leaning in closer. "I know it's going to take time, but I'm ready for the long haul." And in that moment I realized I was too. Whether we would end up together or apart, I knew I was on a path toward healing. I had found strength within myself that I didn't know existed, and I had learned that love, while complicated, was worth fighting for, especially when it was anchored in honesty and mutual respect. The road ahead would still be challenging, but I was ready to walk it, one step at a time. I had learned that vulnerability could be a strength, and that sometimes love could emerge even after the deepest wounds. It wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to move forward, toward healing, toward hope, and perhaps toward a renewed love.